Okay, we are live.
Yay!
Thank you so
Awesome.
much for spending time with us, with our team today. I would love for you just to intro yourself and, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you came to be a part of Aisle Planner, just the whole nine yards.
Of course. So currently I work for Aisle Planner, if you haven't guessed by now. I am the director of our customer success department. So that is anytime you write into us and you get an answer from someone on our team, they're part of our customer success team. And a little bit of my background would be, so I'm actually a previous floral designer and planner myself. I worked mainly throughout the Southeast in Birmingham as well as Atlanta a little bit. And I used Aisle Planner when I started planning after the floral design phase of my business and completely fell in love with it. I think I cried happy tears when I found it because I was like, I don't have to do all this work anymore. It's just going to be on here for me. And it kind of forced me to get a little bit more organized and up to speed in the technology world. So I wasn't completely focused on paper and pen, but so I planned and did floral design separately and then together for a good 5 years. And then ended up moving around. My husband's in the military, so we moved around a bunch and couldn't restart my business over in every single place we moved to. So I decided I wanted to stay part of the wedding and event industry and thought, well, I know a lot about Aisle Planner, so let me reach out to them. So that's how that all started.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. I love that story.
Yeah, thank you. So really happy to still be involved, not directly with clients anymore, but with just the wedding and event industry in general, primarily planners, as you all are anyway. Anyways, a lot of our users are planners. We get occasionally other vendors in there, but it's really refreshing to stay involved. So yeah, I really love it. But I've been with Aisle Planner for just over a year now and completely love my job. Still getting to be involved in the industry and chatting with ladies like yourself. So so that's a little bit about me, a little background. But in regards to what I personally do at Aisle Planner is I head up our customer success team, like I was mentioning. So I run the day-to-day operations and make sure that everything is perfect as possible so that when you write in or you have questions, we are able to help you out the best way that we can.
Awesome.
Yeah, so really excited about today because I know that you're still having the virtual retreat, which is so cool that you're able to do that without having to cancel everything altogether. But my goal today is I know we had quite a few questions that came in regarding the platform, regarding certain tools, everything like that. Just to clarify, everyone does currently use Aisle Planner, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and I love hearing your story. I love hearing kind of your background. So we have a couple women on our team who are in similar boat to you. So doing things online has already been something we've been pushing. And just like you, when I found Owl Planner, I was so excited. We were using something else that was not pretty or glamorous or as organized. Our clients were not engaging with it. And so Owl Planner has just served such a great purpose for us as a brand that all of our accounts are branded with the Chancy Charm logo. There's a cohesive vibe throughout the team because we're all working on the same platform. All of our clients are getting that experience. So just really, really grateful for what you do and for you just, being willing to field our questions. I can read the questions out loud. I do have them here, or if you just want to dive in, it's just really up to you kind of how you want to format this.
So I looked over the questions that you sent and I kind of came up with somewhat of a flow. I know that as questions come up, we might get sidetracked and that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that all the questions you had come in from everyone viewing were answered. And just to start off too, if we don't get to every question because of time restrictions, I can always send out the answers. I'm going to have a couple of things that I'll send you, Sarah, to be able to disperse to everyone after this call as well. And then we can always set up all of you, if you ever want like a one-on-one of the platform too, like you want to dive a little deeper, you can always write into our team and say, hey, I have like, a dozen other questions. Is there any way we can get on a call? And that's totally doable.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. What I really want to do today is make sure all of the questions that you sent in were answered. Plus, we'll take a little bit deeper of a dive into some of those tools that the questions were about. Okay. And then totally your call, but as questions come up, maybe reserve them. If we have time at the end, I'd love to just have more Q&A, just shout your question and we'll just screen share and go through it.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, because we're, before we got on the call with you, we were just talking about how important this platform is going to be for us. Everybody on this call uses Aisle Planner. All of our clients get Aisle Planner, even if they're month up. And so just really dedicated to the use of that, especially as we go into the fall where we're going to be really busy and then also trying to onboard clients. It's going to be, hard. So, I think this is such a great time for us to do a review or for them to reach out and, have a one-on-one call if they want to go even farther in this season where, some of us have the time to do those kind of things.
Yeah. And right now, like you were saying, is literally the perfect time to be, going through your processes, making sure that you're doing everything the way you want to do it for the future too. Because right now, as unfortunately things are getting pushed out a little farther on our schedules, we are getting busier, but also not as busy in person with our clients. So, making sure you're taking the time to just dive in and play around with the tools, even after this call, even after you've had a one-on-one with someone at our team. Just if you ever have a question about one of our tools, go to our help center too. We have, it's just help.aisleplanner.com. It is full of so much information. And you can literally just type in a tool and you'll have like dozens of articles come up about that tool and frequently asked questions. But what I'm going to do today too is I might share my screen a little bit if you're okay with that.
That'll be great.
Awesome. So let me pull up my demo account. Okay. We use Google Hangouts at Aisle Planner. So give me just a second while I share.
We have not used Google Hangouts in a really long time. I need to kind of dive back in. I mean, we were using them back in the day when it was hard, to get consistency, but you guys like using that?
We do because we talk to so many people on a daily basis. I mean, our team is smaller, but we have at least one CSM or customer success manager is giving a demo to, could be up to 4 people a day. And so going through the platform this often, Zoom, you have to download something rather than a Google Hangouts is like, here's the link, go to it, you're good to go.
I love that. Yeah, we need to think about that as a team.
Yeah, because we tend to get a lot of questions that even though someone may be signing up for a software, it doesn't technically mean they're tech savvy. And so we don't want the first experience to be like, I can't download I can't download Zoom, or I can't figure it out, or my browser's not working, or something like that. So we try to make it as easy as possible. But let me move this over. There we go. Okay. Can everyone see my screen actually?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to start going through these questions and we'll have a natural flow, I promise, because I put them into a flow. And I'm not sure who asked what, so I'll just get started. And like I said, if you have questions, reserve them for towards the end, and then we'll just pop in and start answering those questions as we go too. Okay, so the first question was, are there resources AP provides to help us educate our couples on how to use AP best? So yes, yes and no. We don't have videos yet, which is something as the director of customer success I'm working on in the future to have like an onboarding video, kind of like we have for you guys. But what we do have like I mentioned before, the help center, we have help center articles on like how to onboard your client properly. And I will send all of this afterwards. So you don't have to like write down and figure out what URL I'm talking about. I'll send all of this over to you, Sarah.
Thank you.
we have tons of help articles that talk about how to onboard your clients or best practices. We have some pro blog articles that talk about that as well. And then also, you know, how to invite them, what we suggest doing before, all of that kind of stuff. But as far as introducing your client to IL Planner, I just have some tips and tricks on what I did as a planner, as well as what I've seen working at IL Planner. And that's, first of all, when you set up a project, I would set up a note. So I'm going to go into like this Lisa and Kevin's wedding. I would go into your notes tool and set up a note that walks them through the platform. And I can send you both of these, actually, the welcome note and the intro to IL Planner note.
Okay.
But this one I used in the past as a planner as well. And this 99% of the time got my clients through the platform without me having to do like a one-on-one with them. And so this is a note, I'll send it to you all, but it goes over each tool and explains to your client in your voice, of course, edit it as necessary, explains to your client what each tool is for and how you'll be using it. I found that when I sent this to my clients in the very beginning, like I would set up their project, go to the checklist, set up an item or a task that says, go to your notes, view this note, let me know when you're done, like check it off. They typically didn't have questions after this point because it was something they could always refer back to rather than having to go through, 20-minute long video and be like, where was that information on the layout tool again, or whatever it was. So what I suggest doing is setting up a note template, of course, at first, and then you can pull in the note to the project. And then also a welcome document is so important when you're onboarding a client into the platform, because when you get your clients in, that you add them as a planning partner, you pull them in, they, as if you were coming in for the first time, you just kind of look at everything like, oh, okay, where do I get started? I have no idea what to do here. If you just direct them to the notes section and maybe have a welcome document that talks about all of the things that they need to know, like how to contact you, preferred method of communication, what are your office hours? And then this document, this note that I'll send to you guys, talks about the process as well as how to use IL Planner in the process. So it really lays it all out for your clients without you having to get on, an hour-long call with them to do a one-on-one. But at this moment, for items that we have to send to your clients, I would use these notes that I can send the templates over from, or just having that conversation in the first, what I would do is in the first meeting that we would have, actually, I would use it during our consultation, having conversations with them about, this is our platform that we will be using. These are all of the tools, just from the very get-go, showing them how you'll be working together really sets the tone so that when they get in and see these documents, they're not surprised as to what all of this is. So awesome. And then the next question was, can you give an intern access to certain parts of AP, but not others, or make certain parts in AP viewable, but not editable? Yes, depending on how you put them in the system. So there are two ways to put someone, like an intern, an assistant, or even just a coworker, into your system and give them certain access to certain tools or maybe certain parts of the account as a whole. And that really just depends on how much access you want to give them. So first of all, you could go into your settings and you could go straight to users and you can invite them here. What this does is it adds them as a pro user, and a pro user is going to allow for them to have full access to projects that they're looking at or that they're in charge of, but partial access, depending on what you want to give them, to certain like settings and information on the back end. So when you go to invite a pro user, you of course invite member, fill this information out. You can set the permissions ahead of time, and these are standard, super, administrator, and bookkeeper. You can click more on permissions, and this will literally walk you through what it sets them up as to be able to see. Or you could just choose what you think is necessary. Click invite member. Once you invite them, you can go straight into like where their name is. under the access and choose exactly what they have access to on the back end. So this is not project specific, this is account specific. So do they have access to the lead manager, to client management? Do they have access to the calendar, to, contacts for vendors, etc.? All of that back end stuff. And then of course from here you can choose which projects they can see on their dashboard. Now, if you want to have more of a say-so on what they can do within just a project, so maybe like you mentioned, intern, if they're just on projects, they're not in leads, they're not going to handle documents, they're just going to be in a project. I'm going to go back into a project. We're going to go to planning partners. And then here, I would suggest adding them as a client or vendor this way, because when you hit add planner, it just pulls from your pro users. So they're just on this specific project. But if you hit add client or vendor, just like you're adding in a client or a vendor, fill out their information and click add client. Then go in and choose what they have access to for this specific project. So, maybe you just want them to have read-only access for everything. So you could go in here and just do read-only access, or you could do assignments only or full client for the checklist, because that's a little different for them to have checklist items. But you could make everything read-only, or you could choose specific tools that they have access to as an intern and how. So two different ways you could add interns, associate planners, coworkers in general. Just depends on how nitty-gritty you want to get with their permissions. And then the next question was a really good one, and this is going to kind of push us into different parts of the platform. So it said, in what ways do you think most planners are underutilizing AP? Oh, so many ways. It really just also depends on how long you've been using the platform. A lot of people have come in and they've been using us from the very beginning, but they're still only using projects, and they haven't really touched their lead manager. It varies depending on the user, but what I often see are the top things that are underutilized by planners, especially seasoned planners, or sometimes new planners who are just overwhelmed with the platform and they just want to get to planning, is first of all, documents. So utilizing the fact that you can send contracts, you can send proposals, you can send brochures, questionnaires. A lot of people forget that you can do that as part of your business tools. And so you can, rather than just getting in and starting, oh, they booked, let's start planning their wedding or event, using the lead manager and going in and actually sending these these leads contracts to be signed, sending them a brochure of your services, sending them an invoice to be paid directly through the system. A lot of that is underutilized. Not that people don't know about it. I think they just get nervous to start trying it out. Another thing that kind of ties into this is the lead manager in general. So using the lead manager for brand new leads that come in, without diving too deep into all of this. Of course, I could go on and on about like nitty-gritty details here, but the lead manager as a whole is a place for you to keep up with any leads that come in, whether automatically through your contact form or that you manually put in here, because you can actually keep track. It doesn't count towards your subscription. It's completely included. You can go in and keep track of like Jamie Wright and her lead record and having all of this information before even turning her into a client with a project. You can keep track of every bit of information rather than having to transfer it over into a new project from scratch from a piece of paper that you have in a binder. So the lead manager also underutilized, and then along with that comes like documents, quotes, and invoices that I was mentioning a second ago. Another underutilized area, which probably should have been at the top of my list, is the listing. Sarah, you'll have to correct me. With your listing, do you list in multiple areas? Do you have multiple accounts? How does that work for you?
Yeah, we have multiple accounts. So some of our locations are kind of combined,
Okay.
but generally speaking, we have separate accounts for each state.
Okay.
And then I don't know about our listings. I feel like I set that up a while ago, but
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure.
It's totally fine.
I have one for just Houston through mine, so I don't know if everybody else's is set up on their own, like, state or city location or whatever.
Gotcha.
That's how mine's set up.
Okay.
Yeah, associates have more access to using the leads and using the listings than our independent contractors, who are basically project focused.
Okay.
They might have their own aisle planner, though, account under their own brand. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
so it'll be different for everyone then, as far as how you utilize the listing. But that's probably one of the top, and like you said, you set it up a long time ago. And you probably just left it at that point because, you know, it was set up, it was done, it was ready to go, which happens a lot with a lot of our seasoned users in AP, because they set it up and they think it's done, and then we'll have like 5 updates and then they don't realize that there are so many other things that they could be using. As far as the listing goes, the listing's pretty much the same when you started, so that's good news. But always, if you have in your account, if you haven't set up your listing, or if your listing's not complete, you'll know, because you can go to the listing portion and then it'll say whether it's published or not. Or you could just do a quick search in our Find a Pro section and see if you're listed. If not, then that probably tells you it's not set up completely. This is a really underutilized area. It's just like the lead manager. It comes with your account. It's on there regardless. So take the 5 to 10 minutes it takes to set it up and set it live. It's just another way for leads to find you. Fill out a contact form that you put here, and then start requesting your services. So that is a really highly underutilized area in AP for sure. So definitely when you go to your accounts, make sure it's set up. If it's not fully set up and you can't figure out like why it's not being published, there's sometimes like little tweaks, like you didn't put in the business address, stuff like that. Just reach out to our team and we'll get you set up. But yeah, awesome. Marketplace listing, and then contacts. So contacts are also underutilized partially. A lot of people will use the contacts portion in the actual project in here, and they'll go ahead and just add in all of the vendors or contacts for this specific project. But what's really underutilized is your main contacts tab, which is like your address book. And a lot of times I'm seeing planners go in, and when they have a new project, they just manually type in all that contact information for that vendor every single time. But if you can go ahead and set up your address book ahead of time here in your main contacts tab, you can just pull those contacts directly into a project immediately. So like we could go in here, and I don't know if all these are set up. This is our demo account. So keep that in mind. But if you put in, I know Bombshell Beauty has some. So if you put in all this information, this will then transfer over to the project when you pull them in as a vendor for that specific event.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
There's no way to add it to the contacts list when you're in a project, right? Like, so if I type it all in and I'm like, oh, I should add this, I can't hit like add the permanent contacts, right?
Not currently, no. That is a high feature request that we've had as of recently, especially as people are working with different vendors moving forward. As you know, certain vendors are completely booked up and their clients are changing over to different dates, but not currently. You will want to, like, if you know in the back of your mind, I'm probably going to use this contact again in the future, add them here first and then pull them into a project. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that in the very near future. So, but good question. We get that question a lot. So it's definitely high on our dev team's radar. But there were a couple of questions that came up regarding contacts just in general. So can you upload vendor contracts into AP? Yes. So you're going to do that at the project level. So say it's any vendor, florist, makeup and hair, it could be DJ, whatever. They send you the final contract, or even just a document in general that you want to save for that vendor for that project. Super easy to do. You'll go into the contacts tab for that project. You'll go into that contacts card basically. And then you can upload it here on the right-hand side. Another underutilized area. A lot of planners forget that this side does anything, because when you start a new one, it's blank. And what you can do is you can either drag and drop information over here, or you can click add to contact, do files, and then it's literally going to pull from your desktop. And so you can just plop it right in there for your clients to view later, for you to view later, and then it's on hand for this specific contact. And then we have, let's see, when the automatic payment reminders are created, is there a way to include the notes section from the budget tracker? So this one, I'm not sure if everyone knows what the notes section of the budget tracker is, but before we get into all of how the reminders work, I'll show you what that is. So when you go to the budget, and this connects back to contacts, I promise. So when you go into the budget, you can have notes that pop up within, if you've added notes for this budget template, they can pop up so that you know what is going on for this specific category, why you put it at that amount, anything like that. That is all happening at the template level when you create a budget template. There's not a current way to add the notes section like in the payment reminders, like to send to anyone. But what I would suggest doing is when you're messing with the budget here and you're putting in, like we're going to, have an actual amount for this vendor and this is the difference, and you start plugging all that information in. I would first of all do that from the contacts tab. A lot of people do it the other way, but to kill two birds with one stone, going into contacts, we'll do Bombshell Beauty again because it's the easiest. And when you're adding any kind of payment schedule to the budget, let me delete this one off. You can add it into the contacts portion first, and it will sync up with the budget. And so you can go in here and we'll say, you know what, we got a new contract for, and a new invoice for this Bombshell Beauty. So I'm going to do invoice and payments. So we're going to say on budget in the category beauty, or we could say it's off budget. Most of the time it's on budget. So I'm going to click enter invoice. And this is syncing everything up to the budget tool. So you can go down here. This is what was just added. And I'll say this invoice is an actual amount for a previously estimated budget line. So we'll say manicures and pedicures. Because if we were to look at the budget tool, it would say manicure and pedicure estimated $450. So I'm going to apply whatever I put here to that subcategory. So now in here, if I put the invoice amount, we'll say 500. It's automatically going to the budget tool. And I'm just getting into this portion a little bit further just because it's another underutilized area and I want everyone to know about it. So if I put in the amounts, 200 for the first amount, 300 for whatever, and then you can set due dates, et cetera, with reminders, which we'll go over in a second. But once you have all of that done, in the budget tab, it's going to, I've given it enough time. Here we go. So manicure and pedicure, it's recording all of that information that I've put in here. You can go in, whoops, here we go. If I click into the paid portion, you can go in and see who it's connected to. So this one's Bombshell Beauty. So if there are any notes regarding this item, I would just have your clients or yourself go into that contact, Bombshell Beauty, notice who it's for, go into Bombshell Beauty and view any notes that you put for that specific contact, rather than trying to utilize that notes section within the budget tool, because a lot of times that doesn't show up until it's like highlighted, and your clients might not even see that. I hope that makes sense the way I just worded that. But yeah, as many notes as you have on a budget category or subcategory related to a contact, I would put all that information into the contacts card so that it's an easy place for your clients to refer to, just to make it easier rather than trying to rely on the notes portion of a budget template. So
I love that. That's super helpful to know, to understand how that all connects and everything is great.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that it connects, which I think is crazy too. So you can add an invoice like that in the budget tab, but sometimes people forget to connect it to a contact, or they don't connect it to the right one, or they do it first and then they add the contact later and then nothing ever syncs up. So I would just, in the contacts card, create that budget item, that payment schedule with all of that, then it will sync up to the budget tool. Then you don't have to do double the work. But this leads us into the next question, which was, if a payment is due on X date, does AP send reminders, and if so, to who? So depending on what kind of payment you're meaning, if you mean a payment to a vendor from the payment schedule that you've created here, these notifications, as soon as you create them in the contacts portion here, it's going to automatically send these reminders. When we created the due date, it created reminders. It's going to automatically send these reminders to the lead planner on this specific project. The way you know you're a lead planner is if you go into the planning partners and there's a star by your name. That's who's going to get those notifications. If you want your client to receive a notification regarding one of these payment schedule items, you will need to, once it pops into the checklist based on when those, it won't be in here yet, but it'll come in as uncategorized like these. They pop in whenever they are, I believe, 1 month out and then like 2 weeks out, or whenever you set those reminders to go out to someone, they'll pop in on the checklist as a checklist item that needs to be completed. To make sure that your client gets those reminders, you will need to go ahead and assign it to them. So that is who gets reminders for those kind of payment reminders regarding payment schedules that you add into the contacts tab or the budget tab. Regarding invoices, if that's what you're meaning for payment schedules, when you go to, and I'll just click on a random one. When you go to that invoice, going really fast, sorry, don't want to make anyone dizzy. If you go to, we'll just do this random one. We go to that invoice and you have this payment schedule set up with the reminders set as well. Whoever is a recipient for this invoice will be the ones to also receive payment reminders. So if you set them up as a recipient, those are the ones who will receive those payment reminders. Even if you send it to someone totally separate from who the lead was, it's going to be whoever is listed here as a recipient. So very important information there. So not just because it's connected to Jamie Wright as the lead. If you just send it to Jamie Wright's mom or partner or someone else, they'll be the ones to receive those reminders. Okay, so then, oh, that was it for the, wow, contacts. But yeah, as far as the contacts tab goes, and something I do want to reiterate, anytime you are going to use a vendor again, or you think there's a possibility you could use them again, add them into your main contacts tab, because then that's just less work you have to do, and you still have them in your contacts, your main contacts. Even if you're not going to use them again in the future, you still have their information on file that you can revert back to.
And I just love seeing how all this interconnects and like works together.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
Sure.
Can you edit the payment reminder? So like how in the one you showed, and ours say like pending final guest count, if we need to change that number, does it automatically update the payment reminder if you
Yes.
adjust that amount? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If you update it though, however, in an invoice, if you update anything in an actual invoice that you're going to send out, you will need to republish that invoice. Because any changes you make, now it's kind of like in draft mode again, and you need to republish it so that they can see the updated version. But for strictly within AP for the contacts tab, yeah, it'll update automatically.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, and then another one I know we were all very excited about, but is also very underutilized, is the design studio. So the design studio is located within a project. And the design studio, a lot of people, first of all, it's underutilized because people don't understand it. I'm going to make it sound very not glamorous. It is a very glamorous area, but it's to put it in plain terms. The design studio is a place where you can create style guides, or basically folders, that you can then place images or inspiration photos directly into for reference. Plain and simple, that's what it is. But a lot of people think is it Pinterest? Is it not Pinterest? Is it connected to Pinterest? Is it, a totally different area like Canva? They don't totally understand this, but if you remember what I just told you, where it's basically folders that you can then place images into to organize and keep on hand for this specific project, makes total sense. So the basics of the design studio, before I get into some of the questions, the basics of the design studio, as if you've never seen it before, is first of all, when you get in here, you'll want to create a brand new style guide or folder. When you hit new style guide, you're going to put it into a category, and then you're also going to name it. Pretty simple. Click create style guide, and that's going to create a brand new down here. So I could put just like, we'll do cake. We'll just make it not say cake and then cake again. So if I do enter, there, now it's a brand new folder that I can just start adding images to. You'll see some of the ones that we've done, like bouquet ideas. For this one, you can upload, depending on, of course, the restrictions that you have on specific planning partners. If someone has full access, they can come in here and click add image and upload images. Which leads me into the first question, which was, if a couple already has a Pinterest, is there any way to merge or download onto AP without having to go one image at a time? So great question. While we do not integrate with Pinterest, because they're a totally separate company, you can bulk upload into a style guide. So you can click add image, and instead of just doing one by one, which would take forever, you can just grab multiples and click open, and then it'll pull all of them in immediately. So that's an easy way to do it. However, if they are too large, or if they're just big images in general, maybe walk away from your computer for a minute and then come back to let them all load in. But another, or just kind of moving forward and through how to use this part, a lot of people who are using the design studio will upload the images and stop there. But what I suggest doing is adding comments to images, almost as captions or titles for those images, or even just a comment thread between you and the client or anyone else on this account that has access to this design studio. Because this is a great way for you to all come in and just collaborate on the different images that you have in here. Because as a previous planner, I know how it is when you hire, or you get hired on for the event. And I swear the first thing they do is, here's my Pinterest board. And they just send you all of the links, or one massive Pinterest board at once. And it's just kind of all over the place. Not that they meant to, but they started one board and it just kind of evolved over time and has, everything from flowers to cakes to dresses to venues on it. And this is a place that you can use to keep everything organized, which is your job. You're supposed to take what they have and organize it and put it into action. So this is a really perfect place to do that. What I suggest, just from previous experience, is, and Sarah, you might have a way that you do this as well, but I would start up a project and say, okay, great. Thank you so much for sending me your Pinterest board. This is fantastic. But I would actually create a single board on the design studio at the beginning. It'd be the only one I would create. And I would call it Pinterest Picks, or just inspiration if they weren't using Pinterest, or whatever you want to call it, as a place for my client to go in and upload all of the images that she feels is, or he feels is still relevant to the design of the event that he or she wants to see. And they can go in, like say, we'll do the mood board. They could go in and upload all of their images for me, which definitely helps because you don't know why they pin certain photos, or why, is it the dog in the background with the floral collar, or is it the dress? You don't really know, because nobody changes the captions on those Pinterest images. We all know that. So you could have them upload in.
I love that. I love how they can, add notes and stuff, because a lot of times what you think they're seeing out of an image is not what they're actually seeing or what they're trying to pin. On top of, for me, like, I think, to answer this question, for me, when I saw it, was like, okay, the thing is, let's please not add all the pictures from Pinterest to this board, because hopefully this board is a place of refinement for the client, that it's like a step in the right direction away from the Pinterest board, which is often, I don't even know if I had maybe there were probably 2 or 3 clients who, their Pinterest board was curated and was professional, and they had a design background. And so their Pinterest board could have been uploaded in here and been great. But for the most part, it was like mason jar madness back when I was
right.
And, like, it really needed refinement. So like, hopefully as the planner, designer, you're kind of looking at that Pinterest board and you're like, okay, this is what you've told me you want. And I'm looking at your board and these are the images I feel like best represent that. Let's talk about these. Then that opens the floor. Because obviously it is hard. Like, you get a Pinterest board and you feel overwhelmed. Like, maybe I should be pinning all of this and adding all of this and making all of this happen for them. But I think they're actually looking to us for guidance on what actually makes the cut. And so to give your professional opinion based on their budget and aesthetic of like what can actually happen for their wedding, and pitting that into these boards and then getting feedback on them from the client is a great way to start the refinement process. We take it a step further with visual design boards, design blueprints, if you will. So, we're ending with like a board that's very, very specifically exactly what they're going to see on the wedding day, because we want to make sure that we're matching their expectations. This is like, when you described it as folders, I was like, oh my gosh, this like light bulb's going off now of like this curation and refinement spot for us in the journey to what will actually be on in the final design. And just that conversation can happen here, a color palette can be built here, those kind of things can start happening naturally, and then refined into what the actual day looks like. I think, to me, that's what I see this as, a place for that conversation. And if they really, really like an image from Pinterest that you didn't bring in, they can always say that. And you can actually lead that conversation and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing for your wedding. And I feel like it's in the cards for you budget wise. But if there's something in here, if I didn't get an image that you're just like super devoted to and love, please add it to the folder like you talked about, or into one of the folders that it fits in, because I definitely want you to feel heard. I'm just trying to create a plan here.
Right. And kind of bouncing off of that, you don't have to use these folders as like black and white. Like, this is for cake, this is for, flowers, this is for, you can use these however you want. You can call them whatever you want to call them. So it could be, like, you could have not really naming it this, but a realistic design studio style guide. And you could have a, hopes and dreams kind, where know that what they've uploaded here is what they really want to see. Might be far reaching at the moment, but then you can manipulate those photos or come up with something else that mimics that into the more realistic style guide for them, so that they can view it. And also, if you want, what I used to do as well, because depending on the package that the client chose for me, but I would have like full on design, or is it something we work together for, or is it something I do for the most part on my own? You can go into specific style guides and have restrictions. So you could do client editing locked for this one. So they can't upload to this one at all. They can't delete anything off of this one. That way, this one is reserved strictly for the planner to work on. And then you could have a couple others that they are allowed to work on, and they are allowed to upload images to kind of set that balance of, here's what they really want to see, and here's the refined version also.
Oh, and then, like I just kind of was thinking about this in terms of, you said like lock the board, exporting the board, it makes it look so professional and beautiful. Sending that over to the client to say like, hey, I looked at your Pinterest board, here's what I'm thinking, but not having to build that mood board from scratch is a super great way to kind of get, like in the fall, like going to be so priceless for us. And if you're on the team and you're not in love with doing mood boards, and that's okay, you love the logistics, this is going to help you overcome that initial like, oh, I've got to create a mood board, I'm super stressed about it. Like, no, just put some images in here, send it to your associate planner or myself. Let's kind of tweak it a little bit, send it over, get some feedback, go back, that, and it's not so painful. It's not like, oh man, I just spent, 5 hours on InDesign creating this mood board and my client hates it. It's just uploading some images, sending it over, coming back. I love the export feature on this design studio. It's super great.
Perfect segue. That was my next topic. So, you can send these out. So rather than right now you're uploading images and it's just kind of filling in the space around, you can send these to, of course, the client if you're not giving them access to this part of their account yet, or anyone else you need. Anyone with an email you can send this to. So you can use this little action button at the right, and this is called Studio Share. And you can actually build out what you want to send to someone. So you could first include a color palette, which I didn't actually go over yet. We have palettes that you can create based on the colors of that event. Backtracking one more step, just so it makes a little further sense. When you upload an image to Aisle Planner will actually pull out the primary tones of that photo. So you can click save and save it to a color palette here, or even from another project as well. Just
I did not know it does that. Like, I don't know if that's a new update, but I'm like, loving that.
Yeah.
There are so many people on this team that just yes and amen, like gonna love that feature. That's great.
Makes it a lot easier rather than having to use the color wheel and figure out what palettes you want to use. But it goes even further when you send it. I'll show you when we create this. So when we go to send this as a studio share, I'm just going to include the color palette, or multiple if you want. I'm just going to do one. And then you're going to include whichever style guides you want to include. They go in order of how you select them. So like 1, 2, 3. So if you want to have it in a specific order. So whatever we want to include on this one, I'm just picking random ones at this point. And then you can include a note from your note section.
Okay.
Which I highly suggest doing, especially if you're sending it off to like the florist. You can have one specifically for the florist to explain more information, or even have almost like a letter style, saying, hey, here, please see below for all the inspiration, yada, yada.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with that. I'm so obsessed with that because yes, all the notes. I'm a note taker, so I love that. Yeah,
the note section is, it's really basic, which makes it awesome because you can just manipulate like crazy. So once we've created all of that for our studio share, I'm just going to hit preview and print, but what you'll want to do is share link by email, and it'll literally ask who you want to email to. And when they open that email, it will be a link that they have access to, continuous access to, until you basically archive the project. And when they open that link they receive, it'll be the note up top. This is just a general note, but this could be where you're writing a letter to, or a note to someone who's going to be viewing this. And then going down, you have the My Wedding colors, which if you hover over them, shows you the RGB code.
Love it.
And then going down even more, you have all of the Design Studio style guides. If any of them have comments, you'll see a preview of the comments, and you can actually click that image to see all of those comments for that item. And then just when anyone has access, unless you've archived or deleted this project, anyone who has access to the link they receive, it will continue to update. So if you are, sent this originally to the florist, a month ago, and since then you have updated some images, you've added more comments, whatever, you've made changes to what you've attached here, it will update on their link. So you don't have to resend them the link again. So just so that you're aware of that. But that is probably a really underutilized area too, is the studio share part. People don't realize you can easily just send it to someone rather than just giving them access to the design studio for this project.
I love that, because we have, we really are shifting a focus towards design on this team. But, and some people have taken it way farther than others in terms of kind of what their normal processes are. But I'm a huge fan of like meeting people where they are. And I think that there are a lot of people on our team who can really utilize this to have a great impression, not only for the vendors they're working with, but for their clients. When a client sees that you're exporting like a note with a color palette and pictures that represent the flowers they want, man, that confidence that instills in them to see just, how professional this all looks is incredible. Like I'm just like such a huge fan of that. I was using PowerPoint back in the days, so this is really great.
You're doing a lot of manual work there.
Oh my gosh. That's why I'm like so excited. And I mean, I've known about this, but I think just seeing all the dots connect again is just super exciting. And I hope that people are on this call like excited about that this is really cutting down on so much work. Like I have such a heart for the planners, especially going into fall 2020. And I just really hope that they see this as like such a great win for them, because yes, if you're a planner who is completing incredible design boards by the end of the project, great, do that. We're so for that. But if you don't have the capacity to do that in October of 2020, or you just need to get something out the door, like this is so great. Or if you're someone who's never going to get on InDesign and do a design board, but you really want to look professional and you really want to do great designs, like this is such a great tool for people.
Oh yeah, the design studio, and also just to piggyback off that too, the entire platform, when you export things and download things and send stuff off to your clients, it kind of forces you to be organized, because there's no other way in AP but to be organized, because you have to put things in categories and put things into different sections. But then also everything's formatted for when you download it or when you send it off. Everything looks polished always.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of our part of many, but one of our biggest things is it has to be polished. It has to, that's the whole point of the planning, isn't it? To be that end polished version. Right. So it really kind of forces that on you in a positive way.
It does. And that is positive. I mean, when I was going to University of Georgia, I applied to get into art school so that I could then apply to be in interior design school. And both times that I applied my portfolio, I was not the most talented person. Like I'm not the most talented artist. I'm not the most talented designer, but really being clean and neat in presentation just got me in. It got me so far. And I knew that. And like it continued with my clients, like just being professional and being clean and organized.
Mm-hmm.
It just communicates like confidence to your clients. And honestly, so much tension is avoided when your client's like, well, they know what they're doing.
Right.
They've got it under control, I just love how AP really took that to the next level for our team, for sure.
Good to know. So keep all that, write it down and give us a review.
I know, I need to.
No, yeah, totally agree with everything you're saying though. That's like I was saying, when I cried happy tears seeing all of this for the first time, that was why, because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to send people, here's the spreadsheet for this, here's this spreadsheet for that.
Get out of Google Drive jail.
Right.
I love
I'm going to use that Google Drive jail.
Oh my god.
That is so true.
It's horrible. Google Drive jail was horrible.
Yeah. Well, hopefully after this too, nobody feels like they have to resort back to Google Drive jail. But also being mindful of time too. Just a quick question. At 1:45, do I need to hop off or?
No, you're good. This is the last our last session today.
Gotcha.
So I told them, I was like, it might run over, and if you need to hop off, they totally
Okay.
can, but you're welcome to keep going. I think this
Perfect.
is super valuable. I'm loving it.
Awesome. Okay. I was like, I don't think we can do all the rest of the questions in 4 minutes, but we can make it work.
And if you need to go, we can always follow up via email.
Oh, I'll be fine. We're good. I just wanted to make sure. But if we do end up getting to a point where we have a lot of questions coming in, and we aren't able to get to it for just going over a little too far, we can always touch base later as well, or schedule some one-on-ones. But let's see, the next question it's just for the layouts tool. So I'll move on from the design studio. I think there might've been a couple questions that came in, but I'll get to those at the very end. But as far as layouts go within AP, this tool is probably one of our biggest, most complicated, not in a bad way, but most diverse tools that we have. There's a lot to learn on the layout tool, and the best way to learn the layout tool is, first of all, just open up a blank layout when you have some time. Just open up the layout tool on your own, and then pull up in a separate window the Help Center and type in layouts and enter, and you will just learn the layouts tool, all the basics, a lot easier that way, because this is very much so a hands-on tool. But the layout tool, the question really was, how do you make a layout on AP? And there are many ways to make layouts, depending on what you want to add to that layout. But we'll go over the basics for today. And then, of course, like I said, go to the Help Center and look and play with the rest of the tools. But the basics of what most people use the layout tool for is, first of all, when you go to create a brand new layout, say this is a brand new project and we're going to go ahead and start a new one. I'm going to click Add New Layout. And I can name it whatever I want. For this, we'll name it Test. Second of all, we're going to create a guest list, or we're going to add a guest list in. So the guest list comes from the guest list manager here up the top. And you can choose which one to pull in and connect to the layout you're creating. And that is so you can actually assign seats into that layout. So I'm going to actually just choose the reception that we have connected to this one and hit Create Layout. Then it's going to start something brand new. Blank canvas or simple seating. Blank canvas is what you saw a second ago, where it's a canvas, it's going to be blank, and you can just go for it at that point. You can just start adding in tables and layout templates if you've already created some, all of the above. The simple seating is going to be starting with the seating chart first. So you're going to have like, how many tables and seats do you want to start with? They're all going to be defaulted to 60-inch rounds, and you're going to start off by basically creating a seating chart and then transferring that over into a layout view. So it's completely your call on how you want to do this. What I've seen happen more often and people are more successful usually is starting with a blank canvas, because typically you don't have the seating chart until you know what the seating is going to look like. So I'm going to hit Start with a blank canvas, and you see here it's completely blank. If you have a venue layout or just a layout template that you've used in the past and you've saved in your settings, which when you create those, the builder is exactly the same as this. You can just pull it into a project just like you would any other template. I'm going to go to venues here, and you could pull in any of these that we've created in the past as a layout template. But for the sake of showing you how to just create a layout from scratch, we won't do that today. But what we're going to do is, to start off, first you need your background or the blueprint, almost depending on where you get the layout, the blank layout from. You can, if you don't have the blueprint or the blank layout from the venue itself, of course you can draw it. You can create a rectangle on here. You can, you can completely draw it out on here. But for the sake of this, I'm going to just upload an image that I've received from a fake venue. So I'm going to hit draw, and I'm going to add an image, because basically what we're doing is we're adding an image to the background, and we're going to set it to scale. then we can start pulling in objects. So I'm going to click image, and here I have a blank layout, and just open. Oop, really big. Let's back out a little. So now you can see I've uploaded this blank image onto this layout builder. Super simple. The second thing you're going to want to do is set it to scale, because right now if I pull in a table, it's not going to make sense with this. It doesn't know the measurements yet. So I'm just going to hit set image scale, and then I'm going to go in and choose 2 points. As long as this is drawn to scale, then all you need are the 2 points to set it completely to scale. So we'll say when I was, visiting, or maybe the venue sent me over, they said this service area is exactly, let's see, shows there. We're going to say it's exactly 8 feet. I have no idea how big this place really is. I'm going to click set scale. And now it has set it to scale so that if I move in a 60-inch round, it makes sense with the space now. But before I start moving all of my stuff in, because I don't want to get to this point where I'm pulling a bunch in and I go to move, I'm like, oh, well, this needs to shift over a little bit. I accidentally grab the background and move it. Well, that stinks because now we have moved everything over. So what you're going to want to do to the background here, when I have it selected over at the right over here, this locked portion, I'm going to lock it down. Now I can't move it, but I can still move the objects on top of it. It's very
I could just give you a virtual hug. This is so great.
good.
I was also making layouts in PowerPoint at one time. So
right.
This is a step up.
Benny, can you please just make the layout for me?
Oh my gosh. Yes, this is great.
Right. No, you don't have to do that anymore. It's super easy for you to do it all on your own within the project too, and not in a separate tool. But yeah, and we have most of the objects that you'll use, but you can also create your own objects in your settings as object templates that you use maybe all the time. Maybe you're using the same decor vendor or the same venue. They have a specific bar that is wooden and it's custom made and it has very unique measurements. You could create that yourself by using the draw tool and literally drawing it in here. And then you could also save it as an object if you create it into your settings and the object templates. So just as a side note there. So much to go over with the layout tool.
That's great though.
We'll keep it to the basics. We'll keep it to the basics. But the other thing that's very important that you know how to do, which is super simple, you remember in the beginning, I attached a guest list to it. So now that I have added these tables in, I can go in, let me zoom in a little. Let me do a little more. I can actually click on this chair and it shows over here at the right. I'll make this bigger. Which chair it's referring to. I can start typing and it pulls from my guest list. So now I can just start pulling in I'm choosing all of the ones that literally don't have their meal choice picked yet. Let's see. Okay, so none of these have meal choices yet, but they did. But what they do, and I'll actually just show you from another one. When you do add these people into those chairs, you can actually, I'll show you in the reception here. They chose all of the people that didn't have a meal choice chosen yet. You can see here, it gives you from the guest list, any of those meal choices you have chosen for any of those guests, it gives you a key. And then each person will have that corresponding color show up for their meal choice. They even have a star on here if they have special considerations or dietary restrictions, anything like that. To just make it a little bit easier. But that is the basics of the layout tool. We did have another question for the layout tool that said, is there a way to upload layouts from All Seated into AP? So we don't integrate, just kind of like the Pinterest thing, we don't integrate directly with All Seated. But if you already have that layout, if it's a blank layout, of course you could download that if you're using it in All Seated and then upload it, just like I showed you how to do that on the test. You can upload that image directly in, set it to scale, and then you're ready to go. Now, if there are objects on it that you want to transfer over here, they'll come in as part of the image, and they won't be editable like these objects are. So do keep that in mind. But of course, if you have a couple of like PDFs or anything that you downloaded from All Seated, you can just download it to your computer, come here, and then upload it directly as a new layout. Super simple.
This is awesome. I love it.
Good. I'll delete our little test. But let's see okay, yeah, so that's actually it for the layout tool. Like I mentioned though, layout tool is super intricate. There's so many different aspects to the layout tool that you can use. I mean, you could use it in its basic form, or you can get crazy with it and start creating different like tablescapes that I've seen a couple of people do. Just take the time. If it's something you haven't played with before, open up 2 separate browser windows, open up your layout builder in one, open up the help center in another, type in layouts in that search bar, and then enter, and just play. That's the best way you're going to learn all of the layout tool, for sure. The last question I had before we get into like the Q&A part of this is, what are some of your favorite AP features in the works that you're allowed to tell us about, of course? So without getting too specific, in the future, we are going to be heavily focusing on amping up our business tools. So that is going to be, all of your business tools are going to be like your lead manager, your contact form, your documents, your quotes, your invoices, publishing, listing, all of that kind of stuff. We are heavily focusing on because we've kind of set up the project tools already, and we've done a lot of updates to those since we've rolled those out. And our business tools are in need of a little love. So we're going to be focusing on those in the future. That also being said, as far as the publishing and the listing goes, we have done a soft launch of, we call it TAG, or it's the Aisle Guide. And it's by us at Aisle Planner, and it's going to be more of the consumer experience. So when they go on to find you in the Find a Pro section, if you publish any of your work in our, that's connected back to your marketplace listing, all of that will be listed on the Aisle Guide as well. You could just go to theaisleguide.com, and that will show you kind of all what that's about. Like I mentioned, we did a soft launch before we do our hard launch. So that's going to be something I'm really looking forward to in the future, coming up very soon.
That's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. That's all I can say, though. That's all I was privy to say. So keeping it very general, but yeah, be on the lookout for a lot of those updates in the future.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. I just love, seeing how it's progressed and like all the features you guys have added. I mean, it's just incredible what you can do. I mean, I feel like you can obviously really just plan completely from this place.
That's
which
the goal.
is such an asset. Yeah. Not so much back and forth in other places. So really love it.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited to start, doing a lot more as far as updating goes, and just really amplifying what we have for everyone in their account. But yeah, the next year is going to be really awesome. And we're having more education coming out for, I know right now, I don't know if you've seen, we have community conversations going on 3 times a week for different regions, and where we kind of take a deep dive into parts of the platform, and then we have like an open Q&A as well. So yeah, that's also something I'm looking forward to this year. We're just really refining the experience for you guys as well, and making it a little bit better each with each update that we do. But did we have any questions? I think I saw a few come in. Like I said, I don't use Zoom often, so I think this is what that is in the chat. I'm just gonna click it. We're gonna see what it says. Perfect. Okay. Oh, yay. These are awesome. Let's see if there are any questions.
I think they're just excited.
Nice. I love that too. I think the edit the payment reminder already came out. And then
I don't know if you went over this. I stepped out for like a minute, but I don't think I missed it. For certain planners that don't use Aisle Planner for contracts and invoices, what would you advise? Like, I would love to have everything under one, you know, system,
Yeah.
platform, whatever. How would you encourage me in that? And do you have advice or like steps to do that?
Yeah. So that's always tricky. I did the same thing. I was using a different platform with all of my documents and invoices and all of that, like official document stuff when they were leads. The best way that I've seen our current users swap over, and the way I did it that I found was easiest, is first of all, you can move everything over pretty seamlessly. You can create invoices in here because it's already part of the system. You can create brand new invoices for people, and you can go ahead and manually record payments that have already been made and just refer back to, you know, like previous invoice, payment number, whatever. But as far as taking that leap, it takes a little bit of time to move everything over. I'll be honest, moving systems in anything is going to be a little time consuming. But just take it one by one client at a time, probably. If it's easier, it depends on your workload. If you have several hundred documents you need to swap over, that's going to be a much bigger situation than it is to have, you know, 20, 30, 40. So transferring those over, I would actually suggest, because you don't want to get rid of those documents completely. So if you're halfway through planning with someone and they still have an outstanding contract with you, you can go ahead in their accounts, go into the contacts portion, create yourself as a contact in here, and then upload all of those previous documents or contracts or invoices in here. That way you can keep it on file, and then you can go into their client tab and start brand new versions of that if you want to start a brand new version. You know, if you've already created a contract for someone, you might not want to send them a new contract that's the same verbiage for another signature. But if it's, you know, if you're halfway through a certain invoice, you can obviously use the invoice tool, manually record any payments that were previously made, like in here. You can actually go in, just hit record payment, fill out the information, email them another receipt. You can say, you know, like, this is from our new platform. Of course, give them a heads up before you just transfer everything over. So this is our new platform, you know, that we'll be using. Start making your payments here, record payments, and then the payment will be recorded here as well. And then they can continue making payments just through the new platform. First and foremost, though, have the conversation with your clients that you're swapping over to. Don't just send them random invoices from new places. They might get a little confusing. I hope that answers your question.
It did. And then what are y'all's fees? Do y'all have fees for credit cards?
So we don't have a fee to use this platform. So we use Stripe is who we use as our payment processor. And what they have are transaction fees, depending on if they use a credit card or ACH bank transactions.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we do have a fee. The fee would be if it's a failed ACH payment, there's a $4 fee.
And Stripe does deposit really quickly.
They do, yeah, surprisingly quickly.
Yeah, I use that for my academy shop, and yeah, payments go through very quickly.
Awesome. And you can always view your payments and like what's in transit, when it's going to be in your account. Over, if you go to just invoices, and you can go to transfers. We don't have anything on this one because it's our demo account, but you'll see all of the transfers that will be happening here.
Which
Awesome.
your accountant will love you for.
Again, forcing you to be organized so you're not coming to them with a box of receipts.
Yes, and it's so nice because it makes it clear because you can give them the reports of everything, and then it makes it clear, you know, so you can write off your credit card fees and stuff like that, and so like keeping up with that and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one little click, download, send it off to your accountant. Done. There you go.
Yep.
Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions? That was a really good one.
No, I don't guess so. Savannah, I've really enjoyed this, and I listened to your talk the other day that you had. You'll have to forgive me. I've listened to so many things. I don't know
That's okay.
which one it was, but I know that you were talking about like client care during this time, and I thought
Oh
that
yeah, with Greetable.
yeah, that was a really great one, and I really enjoyed it because you know, when I saw it was with Greetable, I was like, I'm gonna sign up, but I'm kind of like, can like some people use them to be like full sales pitchy, and it was not. Like both
Oh,
sides,
good.
you guys, like I did not feel that way. Like I felt like I walked away with stuff where I'm like, I can use Greetable and IO Planner to do this, and these are great ways to use both of these tools, but these are other ways that I can do it where I'm not using, you know, them to still do things during this time. So that was really great. But
That's
sorry,
awesome.
that was my one little like
No,
thing.
that's perfect.
But I loved what you had in here of like the intro. I know you said you were going to send some stuff to Sarah on that, but I think my thing with IO Planner is I know I don't want to call myself a power user, but I use leads, I use like all the back end, like I've swapped over. It's my one system. This is where everything comes through, and I feel like I'm constantly finding things that you know, other people are doing just to streamline the client experience of it. Like, just like you were talking about with having those intro and welcome notes, just to make it a clear place for them to come back and see it. And I was wondering if there was anything that you've seen anybody else, like ways of setting up AP things or anything like that, that you feel like are really like, this was a really cool way that we've seen this or done, or, you know, that this is a really great, I don't even know if you get going with this question.
I totally get what you're saying. I've seen so many different ways that planners use this. There's so many great ways it has been done. It's first and foremost, because it's going to be different for you than it is going to be for Sarah, than it's going to be for anyone. As far as the client experience goes and how you want to refine that, because it speaks a lot about your brand voice as well. But first of all, setting that expectation up front is just key. You know, we will be planning on this platform, and as soon as you get in, you will have these tasks assigned to you. That's the number one thing that I like to see is as soon as your client gets in as a planning partner and they log in, they already have notifications that things are due. And it's, you know, view this note, view that note, you know, go to this, the design studio, upload these things. But there are so many ways to do it for your business. And I actually suggest going to, so we have a group on Facebook called We Are IO Planners. That group is amazing. We have so many IO Planner users on there, which is what it's for, but it's a place where you can ask these kind of questions and you can get so many responses from other planners saying, you know, I use it this way, I use it that way, or let's jump on a call and do it together, or all of that kind of stuff as far as client experience goes. I don't have really a single way that I suggest doing it from what I've seen, just because I've seen so many people use it in so many different ways. But first of all, what they all have in common is setting that expectation up front with your clients that this is where we will be planning, and this is what I expect from you, and here's what you can expect from me, is first and foremost what you need to do. But I suggest going on our Facebook group, adding yourself in there, or asking to be added, and we'll add you in because you're an IO Planner user. But also just asking those kind of questions in that environment, but also on our pro blog, and I'll write this down too, so I can send it to Sarah. We have like ways to better the client experience, just in general. And then we have a couple of other different articles that you can read about. That's from our marketing team rather than just strictly tools and help center kind of stuff. Like ideas and just different ways to market your business and further along your business through using AP. I'll send that over as well so that everyone has it. But biggest thing is expectations up front, making sure you do that first. And figure out what you want your voice to be to your clients and keeping it consistent throughout the entire process.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I've been doing with this time is for my full planning clients, I kind of do a 4 phases of planning, and it's really like we give them a welcome packet, and there's I've split up the checklist into the 4 phases, and I assign, like at the beginning of the phase, I go ahead and I assign all of those out for that phase, and then we kind of go into the next section. But I just have found there's been some level of like that's just one way that I can improve the client experience, is like giving a little bit more clarity throughout the process of the 4 phases. So what I've been doing is doing like a note template for me to do that's like a welcome to the next phase of planning. That's
Perfect.
like, just like an overview from the welcome packet of what we'll be doing, a like list of important links. I've included some of y'all's links, like how to use like different like guest manager, like when we're
Nice.
collecting addresses and stuff. I've like done all that stuff there.
You are a power user. Be proud of calling yourself that.
And
I love that, the phase notes. That's really
That
cool.
is really cool.
so that they have all that stuff there. And yeah, just like, stuff like that I'm trying to figure out of ways to like, I mean, there's always going to be that client who underutilizes what we give them, but I'm trying to like set them up for success and have something that I can turn them to when they're like, when are we going to handle this? And I'm like, here in the notes, it will walk you through it. Please read it.
Right.
So yeah. But
Well, and that's going to be how we survive the fall, is by having things templated. That was my word for the year in 2019 was templated. Still loving that word. Just really encourage you guys while we're in this season to push into that and to set up things like that, so that, because I'm looking at the layout and I'm like, wow, this is super great. How do we educate our clients to do this when the time comes? Because like, obviously we're not going to go in and assign seats. So it's super great to hear that. Like, I loved the intro note, and then I love the phase notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Savannah, I did think of a question for you about it's going to be harder for me. When questionnaires, before you guys came up with the questionnaire option that you could send somebody, I was doing like a big coordination questionnaire in Notes, which has worked fine for me. But and I do my like design questionnaire in that because it's kind of like one thing that they can sit down and complete. And I know you can come back to the questionnaire, but how can I, like, if I were to swap that over for clients and send that to them like a month before we start working together, how can I make sure that they know how to re-access that if they need to update it?
I would put it in the wording of the email when it sends that questionnaire.
Okay.
And let them know if you ever need to refer back to this questionnaire to make updates or just as a reference, please come back to this email. But also put in a notes, like how to access questionnaires. Okay. Go back to, the previous email, like have an FAQ almost for your clients as a note. Put in, typical questions that you get asked by your clients, how do I access an old contract or questionnaire or invoice or whatever it is. Just I would put it in those kind of notes because like you're mentioning, the notes are a place for them to come to within their project, but any documents they need to refer to the past emails that they've received and those links those live links that house those. So yeah, I would start it off by putting it in the email wording, and then also maybe consider having a FAQ note for stuff like that.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Any other questions, ladies?
Hey, this is Jasmine. So I'm going to ask this question, and I know the answer, but
okay,
I'm going to ask it. Is there a way that we can bulk assign tasks to the client on the checklist?
Not currently.
Okay. I know I've heard it asked many times. I've looked for it online, and I know you can't do it, but I was hoping there was a better way to individually assign tasks from the checklist to the client.
That's, again, like the other items I was mentioning in the beginning, something that's on our dev team's radar right now as we further along this year and kind of update things that really need updating right now. The reason we didn't have it in the beginning was so that you can't accidentally bulk assign your client to everything. Just in the very beginning stages of creating Aisle Planner. But as we've gotten further along, that request has been pretty resounding. So we're definitely going to be updating that in the future. I cannot give too many details, but not currently. To answer your question, not currently.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
But you can't, what I do maybe suggest doing is if you want like your clients, depending on how you use the checklist, if you want your clients to just see like, these are all of my things, and maybe you're assigning a lot to certain clients, maybe consider, and they won't get the same updates unless you individually, you know, go in and have them be notified of something that's due. But if you're not doing actual due dates and you're just saying like, you're in charge of all these items, in general, they need to be done. Consider creating a category with their name. And then putting them into that category that way. Or like in the template form, you could title it as like client or bride or groom or whatever you want to call it. And then when you pull it into a project, you could just retitle that as their name or something.
Okay.
Just as a little workaround. Not a, you know, not the perfect scenario, but a workaround for now.
Yeah. And that's good. I need a workaround because this drives me crazy every time I create a new project. It drives me crazy.
Totally get it. No worries.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Any others? Right. I think that might be it.
This was so great. Savannah, I cannot thank you enough for just spending so much time with us and answering all of our questions. And I think I feel so much better about the program, and not that I felt bad about it, but just like excited about the new updates and how we can best use them as a team. Excited and hopeful that our team will use it even more. Yeah, just really grateful for the work that you guys are doing and the endless hours y'all are putting into updates and answering questions and doing one-on-one videos. You guys are amazing when it comes to customer service. I know every time I message, there's like an answer so quick. But yeah, super grateful for you and for your team and just making our lives easier, and just, yeah, super thankful to have Aisle Planner as we head into the fall, and grateful that you were just willing to spend time with us chatting about all this.
Oh, we always are. Seriously. That's one of the things moving forward. I don't know if how many of you have seen our community conversations or the greetable conversation that we had the other day, that webinar. But all of our users are very much a part of the conversation with us. I mean, the reason we do certain updates are because they're by popular demand. That's how we move forward, is by listening to anything that you guys have to say, because you're the ones using it every single day. So if you ever have questions, like she was saying, reaching out to us is, you know, using your little chat bubble is perfect. But if you ever just have a feature request, you know, like, you know, it'd be really great if they had this. I think this would make it 10 times better. Shoot us a message. Let us know. We'll add it to the dev team's list. And who knows, you might see it in the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Wrap the recording up. Let's see if I do this right. It's always a miracle.